college football playoff chaos is inevitable. The only thing we're trying to figure out is where's it going to come? Like, which angle is it going to come from? These rankings right now are not the problem. The format is. The format's insane. Auto bids are insane. It's always been a problem. It's a big problem now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to show you something. I've got exclusive from FanDuel, the odds on all of the first-round games. So we've got the first-round games. Arizona State versus Ohio State in Columbus. Ohio State would be a 21-point favorite. I'm going to come back to this, so just hold on. Tennessee at Georgia. Georgia minus 8.5. Indiana at Penn State. Penn State minus 9.5. SMU at Notre Dame. Notre Dame minus 10. So in those first-round games, you notice there wouldn't be any line below 8.5. That's the first thing. Second thing is we got a big problem. I mean, this format is a big problem, and it did not take until week 13 for some of us to realize that. The format of this thing is a much bigger problem than the rankings are. Auto bids are a disaster of an idea. I know people meant well enough when they got in the room and they said, we got to incentivize winning conference championships. Well, that only makes sense in a playoff format if all your conferences are roughly equal. In the NFL, you get rewarded because the AFC East and the AFC West and North and South, while they're not exactly equal, it's still 4 professional football teams playing in every one of those divisions. So yes, you get rewarded in certain ways. You get guaranteed certain things if you win those. That is not the way college football should work unless you're looking to have an experiment with your playoff instead of truly reward the best teams and the most deserving teams, because in this case, they do overlap. They go hand in hand. So let me explain to you, now that rubber is meeting the road and people are seeing how farcical this could actually be, what I'm talking about. Oregon and Ohio State, in all likelihood, will play in the Big Ten championship game as the top 2 seeds in America, as they should. They've earned it. They deserve it. I got no problem with it. Someone's going to lose that game, and that someone will probably drop to the 5 seed. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's Ohio State. Do you understand with the way this thing is currently set up? Ohio State has to drop out of the top 4 because they're not a conference champ. So we got to make room for a Boise State. That's right, kids. Boise State would be guaranteed a higher seat at the table than Ohio State because they won the, what is it, Mountain West, because all conference champs are created equal these days. Everyone deserves a seat at the table. That makes you feel good. That's bumper sticker logic. It's stupid, but it's bumper sticker logic. So, for the sake of making everyone feel good, let's go with it. Well, let me tell you how dumb this is. Ohio State would drop to the 5 seed. They'd be punished. They'd drop to the 5 seed. As this thing is currently stacked up, Ohio State would play Arizona State in the first round. And then they would advance to play Boise State in the second round if they won. Ohio State would be a 3+ touchdown favorite in each of those games. Now, sure, they'd have to play one more game. They wouldn't get that first round bye. But I'm going to suggest to you that Oregon, sitting there with a first round bye playing Georgia, is in a much less advantageous position than Ohio State playing 2 teams. The data and analytics crowd can shove it on this. I'm right. And if you're Ohio State, you know good and well you like your odds of beating Arizona State and Boise State back-to-back, especially with one of them being at home, over having to play Georgia. I'm not saying you're guaranteed to lose against Georgia. You may even be favored against Georgia for all I know. But you know Georgia's athletic profile. You know Kirby Smart. And you also know Arizona State and Boise State, all due respect, have no business on the same field as you in a postseason setting. So that's what first-round buys are now locking in for us. There's no way that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to sign back off on this beyond 2026. I don't think they are. Is there room for a 3-loss SEC team in this thing? There is, but some stuff's got to happen. I'm not going to be fighting for this because once you've lost that many games, especially some in egregious fashion, like Bama Vanderbilt or Ole Miss Kentucky, you've lost benefit of the doubt with me. I may have you power rated high, but at this point, if you're in, good for you. If you're out, it's your fault. If Notre Dame loses this weekend to USC, it opens the door maybe. If Clemson loses to South Carolina, and Clemson is pretty overrated as a team in the playoff rankings right now, if Clemson loses, that opens a door. I think just if those 2 things happen, a spot is open. I'd be really interested to see what happens if UNLV beats Boise in their conference title game. Be really interested in that. And speaking of that, Is there a chance that we have two G5 teams in the playoff? The answer is yes. I may think it's ridiculous. I may think a G5 playoff should exist, but it doesn't. So this is what we have right now. This is the current format. You're kidding yourself if you're denying that this could happen. This could absolutely happen. I mean, Tulane, I think, is the best G5 team in the country right now. They're behind Boise. I'd favor them by 7 against Boise on a neutral field for whatever that's worth to you. But look, if Boise wins out, yes, they're in this thing. They probably get a first-round bye. If Tulane wins out, they're red hot right now. If Tulane wins out, there is a chance that they are ranked higher than the Big 12 champ. There is a chance of that. And remember, we're just taking the 5 highest ranked conference champs. So the Big 10 would be in, the SEC would be in, the ACC would be in. In this scenario, Boise would be in with the Mountain West. There's a chance Tulane with the AAC is higher ranked than whoever comes out of the Big 12. I don't think it should be that way, conditionally. I'd have to see what the resumes look like. But because I think the caliber of schedule you play in the Big 12 is that much tougher than in any G5 conference. But I am not on the committee, nor am I scheduled to be on it next year, I don't think. So, yes, that could happen. In the ACC, there's another little chaos scenario that could unfold. You know, Clemson plays South Carolina Saturday. Let's say they win, and then they're done. So let's just say Miami and SMU do end up going to the ACC championship game. Clemson wins Saturday. They're done for the regular season. They just sit at home. They beat a top 15 team to close the season. They're probably in the playoff. If just that happened, if Clemson just beats South Carolina, they're probably in the playoff. What I want to know is if Clemson beats South Carolina and SMU beats Miami close, how does a top 10 Clemson, you know what? Forget that, because I'm talking about how they get 3 in. Let's say Clemson were to win this Saturday and Miami doesn't. So Miami goes to Syracuse. So let's say Miami loses and they're out. Or maybe SMU loses, who knows? But let's say somehow Clemson gets in that ACC championship game and they're sitting there as like the 9 seed or the 10 seed and they lose. Do you think the committee would drop them out? Do you think the committee would punish them for playing a conference title game? Because remember, we've talked about that in the SEC. We've talked about that in the Big Ten. We never had reason to talk about this scenario in the ACC because up until very recently, the ACC didn't have enough contenders with a leg to stand on. Well, now, according to the committee, they do. So Clemson could win this Saturday. It's not a conference game, but Clemson wins this Saturday against South Carolina. Well, that would boost them up probably to number 10 or number 9 or something like that. If some craziness happens, they could go to the ACC championship game and lose. Would they fall out? Would the committee punish them? I don't know. We've always known the 5 seed was going to be a really, really good spot. And Ohio State is showing you. Like Ohio State, I just told you, they'd be a 21-point favorite against Arizona State. They'd be more than a 21-point favorite against Boise in the second round. But you notice what's happening with the 6 seed. Like the number 6 seed, depending on how this stuff falls, could draw like an Indiana and then SMU or someone like that if the conference championship game kind of falls a different way. My point is, not only is the 5 seed looking to potentially have a very navigable path, depending on how this stuff falls, you could say that about the 6 seed too. Meanwhile, number 7 seed is going to go play Georgia in round 1, and if you survive that, you're going to play Oregon in round 2. There is a big difference in the way those seedings are drawn up. So yes, we've got a bunch of chaos on tap. I don't have a huge problem with the rankings. I got a problem with the format. And you just either agree with me on that or you don't. I know that there is a school of thought that you have to keep the auto bids for the conference champs to maintain the sanctity of conference championships. And I say to that, it doesn't make enough sense to me. I don't care about your auto bids. I just think they should go to the top 4 teams regardless. The auto bid stuff for conference champs is insane. And you're about to see why. I don't think it may last all that long, but you're about to see why.